And he's saying such a great fire is started by a small thing, a small fire leading to this great fire. This shows the great destruction that can be caused from our tongues.
This is a Truth Transforms Truth Nugget, a daily dose of truth for your daily transformation.
So sinful speech is a pretty big deal. Sinful speech is what James addresses in this passage. And so let's take a look and see what he has to say about it. And what we see is the power of the tongue, the problem of the tongue, and the purpose of the tongue. So we can start in verses 3 to 5. And here we see the power of the tongue. Look at verse 3. If we put bits into the mouths of horses so that they obey us, we guide their whole bodies as well. Look at the ships also. Though they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are guided by a very small rudder, wherever the will of the pilot directs. So also the tongue is a small member, yet it boasts of great things. How great a forest is set ablaze by such a small fire. Well, James begins, he starts talking about bits. He talks about putting a bit in the mouth of a horse. He says if we put bits into the mouths of horses so that they obey us, we guide their whole bodies as well. He's saying this very small device, this very small piece, it can control the horse. You can apply pressure and control where the horse goes. And he's saying our tongue is the same way. Our tongue is a very small member of our body, but our tongue can control the rest of our Christian life. When we lose control of our tongue, we'll probably lose control of other things in our Christian life. But when we can gain control of our tongue, then we can gain control of other areas in our Christian life. I believe that's what James is showing us. Well, then he moves on, he talks about a ship and being controlled by a very small rudder. He says, look at the ships also. Though they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are guided by a very small rudder, wherever the will of the pilot directs. So also the tongue is a small member, yet it boasts of great things. So he points out that the tongue is a small member, yet it boasts of great things. Notice that he continually points to the fact that the tongue is insignificant in its size, but it is great in the kind of damage that it causes and the kind of destruction that it can cause. And here he's talking about a ship. He's talking about that this very small rudder can control a whole ship. So the tongue is very powerful. And just like the ship is guided by the pilot, who just goes wherever the pilot wills, our tongue goes wherever we will. And so he's saying we need to will it to be under control, and we need to be intentional to make sure we don't lose control of our tongue. So wherever we allow our tongue to go, then the rest of our body goes as well. So that means if we allow our tongue to lash back sharply at someone in anger, then we can be sure that our anger will grow. If we allow our tongue to say rude things, then we can be sure that we will become rude people. If insults are allowed to fly out of one's mouth, then that person will grow in that sinful tendency. So we must control our tongues. We must eliminate sinful speech. Remember what James said in verse 19 of chapter 1. We must be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. Now, James continues his explanation of how powerful the tongue is by talking about small fires in verse 5. Again, you'll want to notice his continual focus on the size of the tongue and the great damage that it can cause. Verse 5 reads, how great a forest is set ablaze by such a small fire. He gives a third illustration about the power of the tongue and demonstrates through his description of a forest fire how destructive the tongue can be. He refers to the tongue as a small fire. He says, how great a forest is set ablaze by such a small fire. So what does a small fire look like? Well, a cigarette is probably about half the size of this pen, a standard cigarette, maybe about half the size of this pen. And how many wildfires do cigarettes cause? Quite a few. Many reports of wildfires are starting because people are driving down the street and throwing a cigarette butt out of the window. So you got a small fire there, not quite out, thrown out of the window, and wildfires are started. He's saying such a great fire is started by a small thing, a small fire leading to this great fire. This shows the great destruction that can be caused from our tongues. So the most destructive fire in Colorado history was actually the June 2013 Black Forest Fire. June 2013 Black Forest Fire, it says that between homeowners and car owners, there were over 4,000 claims, totaling over $420 million in damage. That's nearly 500 homes burned. That's quite the destruction. It shows that kind of destruction can come from a very small fire, like a fire in a cigarette, and that kind of destruction can come from a very small fire in your tongue. So sinful speech can cause the same kind of irreversible damage. Well, in fact, we're told in Proverbs 18:4, a fool's mouth is his ruin, and his lips are a snare to his soul. The words are powerful. Sinful speech can cause great damage. We're also told in Proverbs 15:4 that a gentle tongue is a tree of life, but perverseness in it breaks the spirit. So we need to be careful that our sinful speech does not start a small fire that spreads and grows into a great fire with incredible destruction. We need to remember how powerful our words are and restrain our lips from speaking damaging words.
Well, I do pray that was a blessing. Now do me a favor, and if you enjoyed today's Truth Nugget, go ahead and hit that like button. That really does help to spread this to more people. Also, if you're new to the channel, you've joined us in the middle of a series on the book of James. And you can find all of the Truth Nuggets on the book of James in a playlist that'll be available in the description and also on the channel homepage. God bless you, and I'll see you in the next episode.